In the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. This practice is fun because you get to do it every day. Every day you get to practice this stuff. And it brings a whole new set of challenges every single day. Isn't that great? Did you all think your challenges were just going to disappear if you did this stuff for a little while? Probably not. Anyone's challenges gone away? I hear if you sit closer to the front row, your challenges go away quicker. Just so every day we get challenged. That's never going to stop. And the sooner we begin to embrace just that, just the simple reality that every day is going to be filled with absolute chaos, kind of welcoming that is, for me, half the battle, I think, if not all of the battle. I use this kind of expression a lot, but Karma Lekshi Somo is a Tibetan Buddhist nun. She taught for us here on and off for 12 years probably. Was a professor at USD, World's Religions, for probably 30 years. Recently retired a couple years ago, moved back to Hawaii. But she would always tell the story that one of her teachers told her that anytime she had problems, challenges, or anything going on at all, her teacher would just say, blessings, 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 as soon as they came into her life. Meaning that when you're faced with conflict, when you're faced with difficulty, when you're faced with challenges, very often our mind doesn't welcome those. I mean, how many of you have a problem in your life and you're like, yes, another problem? No. We immediately, before we even look at what the problem is, before we even address anything about the problem hasn't even made its way completely into our lives. It just became aware of it, and we've already just tried to throw it out the door. And this is opening the door. Ultimately, there is no door to open, but we'll get to that next week. This is tomorrow. This is opening the door to welcome in all of these, what you would call problems and challenges and difficulties, as blessings, meaning opportunities to practice. Because if we resist these problems, does the resistance of these problems make the problems go away? No. Very often the resistance of the problem or challenge or difficulty or conflict, whatever it is, just makes it worse. And again, we're not even addressing what's going on. We're too busy angry and pissed off that we have something new to deal with. So we open the door that doesn't exist, and we just welcome it with blessings as an opportunity to practice. Well, what does practice mean? Does it mean just meditation? No. Is meditation necessarily going to make any of your challenges any easier or go away? Definitely not. It might allow you for a period of time to stop doing stupid things, to stop acting on all of the thoughts, to stop bringing that kind of whatever mind you would normally bring to a problem. It allows it to settle. But the mind sitting and breathing doesn't change the problems. It allows us to sit with it and then recognize if we want things to change, then we have to change. And the difficulty is sometimes there's not much we can do. And then we come back to just welcoming the blessing, which is being with reality. And reality sometimes just sucks. You know? I'm always fascinated, and then we'll sit, because I don't want you all to be disappointed that you didn't get your meditation in today, because then you wouldn't be able to tell people you went to meditation, you know? I always laugh because most people don't leave here and say, like, hey, I went to a talk this morning and got reminded for 45 minutes about how I lack patience, right? Most people don't go brag about that. They're like, hey, I went to meditation today, you know? Most people don't talk about how wonderful it was to learn about ethics and morality, you know? Anyone going to go home and, like, post how wonderful their morality class was? No, but meditation, that's the key, right? It's just a tiny piece of it. So reality, it sucks sometimes. And what always fascinates me is people overlook the very first thing the Buddha said. Life is what? Suffering. Have you not figured that out by now? And very often we want to jump to the rest of it. Right? Suffering, for those who are maybe brand new, it's a terrible translation of the word dukkha. Terrible meaning it's just very heavy, at least in the English language. The word suffering is very heavy, intense, extreme. But it just means discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, things not going our way. Your latte made the wrong way, your sandwich had too much mayonnaise on it, you didn't like the way it was toasted, whatever it is. This is dukkha. And so our entire life is filled with little things that drive us crazy and annoy us, and severe trauma, death, loss, pain, real stuff. So this is dukkha. And so the first thing the Buddha said is life is filled with it. But too often I find that people who learn about meditation and Buddhist practice and really get into this practice want to skip that part. They're like, okay, I've had enough suffering. Help me, Buddhism. Let's get rid of it. And you're missing what the Buddha said. Life is filled with it. You will never get rid of it. But you can welcome it. Because that's reality. So, you're all free to go now. All right, I guess we'll do meditation because that's what people want, that craving and desire. We'll start. For those who are joining virtually, welcome. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. Right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. You need to ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable, whatever that looks like for you. If you are in a cushion, often helps slide in the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. However you are seated or laying down, just make sure you're comfortable. I'll guide us as we begin. And we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments, just sitting, breathing. with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around you or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddhist awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice, not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people might think it is. It's direct perception into this present moment. And as I said earlier, the present moment is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. Very often people think that meditation is going to fix things or that it's going to make your life all better, as I spoke about earlier. Meditation creates space for you to recognize what your thoughts do and where your thoughts go. Your thoughts lead to words, words lead to actions. So if you want life to change, if your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out, miserable mess, you can't just meditate and think that's enough. You have to make changes. And making changes is scary for a lot of people, difficult. Not always fun, but suffering sucks. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. That's it. And that's why, like I said earlier, opportunities to practice. We have that every single day. To practice loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. All these key buzzwords that you see in just about every single Buddhist book that is out there. The concepts are really simple. Buddhism is not difficult. People often think that because it was, from a place very far away from 2,500 years ago, a very long time ago, that it's got to be this esoteric thing to figure out. There's nothing to figure out with Buddhism. Nothing. It is so simple to understand and so seemingly impossible to actually do. So meditation, Buddhist practice is not, to me, an intellectual understanding. And so many people struggle with this, trying to understand Buddhism. This is about understanding your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And it doesn't matter what religion or what belief or lack thereof that you have. Buddhism and all of that just falls away. Become aware of your thoughts and your words and your actions. That is the entire body of the Buddhist teachings. It doesn't change. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. Which is good, because that's hard enough. So, with that, I'll pause. For me, I always just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. And again, for those who are joining virtually, welcome. Feel free to say hello. If you have any questions, you can put them on the chat box there. I'll do my best to respond. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions.
Just kind of wanted to share something I've been thinking about. My partner Molly comes and hosts sometimes on Tuesdays, and that's got me in here a lot more. And I got a chance to be her +1 for the volunteer event the other day, and everybody got a chance to go up and kind of talk about like what this place does for them, what they do for this place, and there was a lot of expression of gratitude. And then this past Thursday, we also got a chance to do the food redistribution, where we go make peanut butter and jelly. Then Dana, I think Eric's over there too, and we went and passed it around. And there was a lot of generosity there, or gratitude there as well. And that felt really, really good. Like it felt really powerful, like inside my body and my mind. And I've just been thinking about it, and I think as a practice of like trying to pass that on, I just wanted to express like I'm very thankful that we have a place to come, and I'm thankful for the Sangha, and yeah, it's really kind of enriched my life. So I just wanted to pass that on and say thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for sharing that. Beautiful. I have about like 8 jokes I want to make towards you, and I'm going to let them all go. No, I don't want to steal that. I don't want to tarnish what you just shared. That was beautiful. So I appreciate you sharing that. So, yeah. And Molly would love it as well. So this is recorded, so if she's not watching, make sure she goes back and hears what you said.
Play it back.
Yeah. So thanks, dude. Seriously. It's interesting. I will add to that, though. It's funny because I typically, especially after, and I know a lot of you in this room were there that night. That a couple Sundays ago we had, for those who don't know, we did a volunteer appreciation night, and there's a couple of us, Maggie and myself, really that run this whole place. But it's, you could get rid of us. It's the 100 people that show up and literally open the doors, close the doors, clean everything, prepare everything, lead all the classes, lead all the programs, put all the stuff away that you all leave laying around, throw the paper towels in the trash where they're supposed to be, put the, mugs that you forget here week after week away, all that stuff. It's all the people that are sitting here that do all of that stuff. And, whether somebody had been volunteering, for one day, that was there that night, or, been volunteering for 15 years, that night is always one of my favorite nights of the year because it brings together, we had probably 75, 80 people here that night. And as he was saying, each person came up and actually shared, they introduced themselves and shared what do they do here and how it's impacted their life. And I'm telling you, if we ever did like those cheesy infomercials, we should have been filming that and that night. It's one of the most, like, you get laughter, you get tears. We had a kid making Buddhist jokes. Like, it was like the most beautiful expression of what Sangha, what community is actually about. And, we take refuge at the beginning in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The Buddha nature that's within us, that we too can awaken just like the Buddha did. Siddhartha was just a person. We take refuge in the Dharma, the teachings, but then we take refuge in the Sangha. And it really is all the people that come together, the community that come together to make every single thing that we do here in this place even possible. And so to hear that, for the good 45 minutes to an hour that it took for everybody to share, was really, really powerful and really special. Not to mention the incredible food that Kaya and Theo made that night as well. But yeah. So you too could volunteer and show up next year for the volunteer appreciation night. Thanks, man. What else? Thoughts or questions? Yeah.
My question is about forgiveness and grace and amends. I know how important forgiveness is. I've performed, or I'm given forgiveness, and it's like dropping a rock out of your backpack. Mm-hmm. It makes your burden lighter. But I'm a drug addict. I've hurt a lot of people. How important is amends? Is it more important for me to forgive myself, or is it more important for me to go out and make amends?
Yeah. So the question around forgiveness and as you shared, for anyone who didn't hear it, as an addict, you've hurt a lot of people, and dealing with making amends. Is it more important for you to forgive yourself, or make amends also with yourself and others? Where's kind of it's all important. I don't like to look at it as like one is more or less important than the other. Very often, and I even probably will say this most of the time, that you have to start with yourself. But I don't mean that in a sense that forgiving yourself is more important, or making amends with yourself is more important, right? But I think that's where it has to start. Very often, if we don't forgive ourselves, and we don't, to me, making amends translates to having compassion for yourself and love for yourself, right? If we don't start there, it's going to be really hard going outward. But I think that the caution there is, my master always said, when we do things that harm others, 3 things. First, to recognize what we've done just wasn't right. It caused harm. If you put it into technical Buddhist terms, you weren't following, the precepts or the, triple gem or any of these kind of core teachings. You did something that didn't fall in line with all the stuff you've been learning and reading around, kindness, compassion, things like that. So first is to recognize what you did, you shouldn't have done. Second is to apologize. And as you say, make amends. But here's the catch. Even to your example, you've hurt a lot of people. So a lot of those people may have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And now through your journey and your spiritual process and your healing and your recovery and all that stuff, you're recognizing something that you did that was really bad 30 years ago. I'm just making shit up as always, but you recognize something that you did really bad 30 years ago. And all of a sudden you're like, I want to make amends with that person. They're probably over it. they probably don't want to hear from you. And so very often, the best thing to do, this is what I was taught, is if the person is no longer in the picture, if it's not most beneficial for them, meaning we want to make amends for us, right? You ever heard somebody that probably doesn't want to hear from you anymore? Yeah. So just because you want to be at peace with that, doesn't mean they are, and doesn't mean they want to hear from you. So what my master said was, genuinely, authentically apologize for that situation, but to somebody else. Right? So find a close friend, a sponsor, a loved one, whatever, and say, look, I'm really wanting to make amends for what I did. And it doesn't have to be 30 years ago, it's just an example. Could have been yesterday, right? Very often it was somebody yesterday, they definitely don't want to hear from you right now. So it's not always about, I think this kind of forgiveness, apologies, making amends, we have to see it from all sides. And sometimes the process of doing that could actually cause more, maybe they've tried to forget about it and move on from it. And you reaching out to them is just digging up old stuff. Exactly. But you genuinely want to, apologize and move through what you're feeling. So then share that with somebody. That make sense?
Yeah.
And the third step is to make a vow to never do it again. Super critical.
Yeah.
And a lot of, when I say do it again, a lot of the things we do, it's not just like that specific thing. I mean, of course, if you keep banging your head on a wall, vow to stop banging your head on a wall. But the reality is, what's behind why you keep banging your head on a wall?
Yeah.
And that's, again, just an example, a metaphor of all the stupid things you've done, I've done, we've all done. Look at what's behind that. So vow to stop banging the head on the wall, but understand why you keep doing it. And that will always come back to the 3 poisons in Buddhist teachings: greed, anger, ignorance. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. What else? Yes.
I don't know I don't really know how to phrase this, but I guess this goes for meditation and also other habits that you either do want to do or want to stop. And I feel I always hear look at the emotion you're feeling in the moment and figure out why you want to do that. And I try and do that, but when I'm in the present moment and I look at why I want to do that, I just don't care.
Yes, correct. And you want me to solve that for you? Is there a question with that, or what?
I just don't really know
what to do.
Yeah, what to do, because if I don't care, then I'll just do it or not do it, and
Correct.
it just doesn't solve anything.
Correct. Well said. I got nothing for you. The thing is, again, to kind of paraphrase those who didn't hear it, is that you understand that when you're with bad habits or any habits, really, to understand in that situation what you're doing may not be healthy for you, and to kind of explore in that moment why you're doing it, what's going on, to maybe pull yourself away from doing that. But in that moment, you don't really care, so you just keep doing it. Yes, and that's not necessarily going to change. I mean, this isn't the good news yet. That's not necessarily going to change anytime soon. Sadly, we can spend our entire lives, kind of that idea, that expression we've all said probably many times in our lives, I wasn't even thinking. You do something, you're I wasn't even thinking. Well, we were thinking, we just weren't thinking that long. So a couple things. One, first, it's really great that, and I say this for everybody that's here, because that's why we're here, that you recognize you have habitual patterns and behaviors that you want to change. That intention and motivation alone doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to have solved this issue, whatever it is, but you're working on it. And so the first thing I introduce is just the practice of patience. Stay patient and know that because you want the answer to what you're asking, you will eventually get there. Again, that doesn't solve tomorrow, but just know that if you keep exploring this, you'll get there. The second thing is when you're done, you're in that moment, you've done it, you're exploring it, you don't want to stop, whatever it is, and then afterwards, you feel guilty, you feel shame, you feel remorse, you feel bad, whatever those feelings are, feel those. Right? In that moment, we're I'm doing something really stupid, I shouldn't do this, I should stop, but I don't want to stop because it's really stupid and I like it. and you just keep going, you're not going to stop. Nothing I say or anybody says is going to make you stop in that moment. But afterwards, when you feel terrible, and again, I'm just making shit up in my head, so just no specifics. Sit with that feeling afterwards. You ever done something really dumb and felt really bad afterwards? That's the feeling you want to sit with. Realize how bad it feels. And in those moments, not always, but we've oftentimes in those moments, not only have we harmed ourselves, what else have we done? Harm others. Sit with that. So after we've done something we shouldn't do, and we feel pain, we feel suffering, and we know others are feeling pain and suffering, just kind of go over there and be like, wow, I'm really hurting right now. And so is somebody else. That feeling of pain, as miserable as it sounds, will in time help cultivate compassion. Because the way we overcome anger and misery and all that kind of stuff is compassion. But we have to feel that anger and that pain. And then from that, we'll root compassion. Because ultimately, we don't want to hurt ourselves, right? We do, but we don't want to. Most people, in most cases, really don't deep down want to hurt themselves. And I truly believe that most people, in most cases, don't truly want to hurt others. But we do. So the more we feel other people's pain and our pain, again, in time. Now the third piece, again, both of those don't help you at all right now. I recognize that. The third piece is something I heard years ago that I really liked. It's an acronym, and it's SOBER, S-O-B-E-R, right? And I think John Kabat-Zinn, I think this came from him originally, who founded mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR stuff. But sober is when we're in that moment where we're just like, I shouldn't do this, right? The S is stop. And this all happens, I'll walk through them, but it happens pretty quickly. Stop. Just literally stop. The O, the second one, is to observe. Like, what's going on right now? Whatever that means. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is happening in this moment? The third one is breathe. Take a breath. 1 deep breath, 2 deep breaths, whatever. Again, this is all real quick. Stop. Observe what's happening. Whoa, this is what's going on. Breathe. Take a couple deep breaths. Right? The next one is expand. They're all critical, but I always look at this one as like the most critical. Most critical meaning expand to recognize that your entire life is not about this moment. Whatever you're angry at, whatever's leading you to do it, whatever you're frustrated about, expand beyond to recognize that your whole life is so much greater, so much more important, so much more beauty than this one single moment. So stop, observe it, take some breaths, expand to know that life is greater than that moment that you're experiencing. And the R is, I still have never confirmed, it's either relax or respond, but both are good, right? Respond, relax, rest. I don't know. Didn't you look it up for me what the R stands for?
Respond.
Respond. It is respond. Thank you. We have confirmed. It is respond. Right? I make up a lot, but when I try to quote others of things that are relatively recent and real, I try to do it properly. You know. So then respond. And so the idea is that we're now responding after we've kind of taken a step back, stepped away, took some deep breaths, looked at the situation, realized that life is so much greater than that, and then the response, hopefully, is a little wiser, a little kinder, a little gentler. It's not always going to work. But if we keep these three things in mind, the desire to want to change this, the recognition that the more we feel the pain and suffering of ourselves and others, the harder we'll work to end what we're doing, and the sober piece, I think those three things together, in about a year, you'll be good. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
So the word equanimity
Mm.
is one I always get lost in, which
Yeah.
might be ironic, but for years. So if you don't mind.
Talking about equanimity?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a teaching in Buddhism called the Four Brahma Viharas, Four Foundations of Mindfulness: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And you know, you'll hear kind of various as with any Buddhist word or teaching, ways to describe it. To me, it embodies a little bit of balance, but also this idea that as waves come crashing down on a huge boulder, the boulder doesn't move. And the waves just crash. So equanimity is being the boulder. Be the boulder. Kind of like be the ball, you know? It's just allowing life to happen and not penetrate us at all. And it doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you become just, emotionless. See, right now you're the pebble. But you can become the boulder. That's what equanimity is. Think of so I went from an ocean and a boulder, right? Imagine like a little leaf or a pebble in when it's raining and you have like the water running down the curb and like the little leaf in it and it like just keeps going. Most of our lives we're like that little leaf. And every little thing, the rain, the ocean, water, these are just metaphors for life's challenges. Our entire life we're just being thrown around like a tiny little pebble or a leaf in a stream. But when you're the boulder, you're still hit with the wave, but it doesn't knock you over. Emotionally, mentally. You recognize this is pain, this is suffering, this sucks. Somebody asked a couple weeks ago, which was interesting because nobody really asked me that, at least not since I was young and was seeking and craving and desiring happiness, thinking happiness was something, because everybody's craving happiness. I love the fact that Dalai Lama wrote a book, The Art of Happiness, and it became a national bestseller. There's nothing in Buddhist teachings that are about becoming happy. It's about being at peace and defining what is happiness. Happiness is not getting all the stuff you want. To me, happiness through Buddhist practice is being at peace. People die. People get sick. We lose loved ones. We lose animals, which are loved ones. We have heartbreak. We experience tremendous trauma in our lives. I'm not happy about that. But I'm not unhappy about that. That's reality. And to be at peace with that is the practice. That's what Buddhism to me is about. It's not about attaining happiness because we're all so screwed up in this idea of happiness anyways. The seeking and craving and desiring happiness for most people just means you're getting what you want. Life is not about getting what you want. In fact, most of your life, you're going to get what you don't want. Right? And we suffer because we're craving, desiring happiness, which we equate to getting what we want. And then all of a sudden we get what we don't want. When we're at peace, it doesn't matter what we get. We're going to get what we get. So equanimity is, to me, being at peace. It's being the boulder. What else? Life is dukkha. I mean, he was not kidding. Try seeking, desiring peace, being at peace, instead of seeking and desiring happiness. It changes things drastically. Especially because most people have such a warped sense of what happiness is to them, based on how we're raised and how we're conditioned to think that if we get all our little stuff in a row, then we'll be happy. What would you rather have, happy holidays or peaceful holidays?
No holidays.
No holidays. which would be peaceful. What else?
Can we talk about compassion? You normally say that Ukrainian is pouring out compassion to the world. So, what exactly in a compassion you're trying to alleviate others' suffering? Sometimes you are, sometimes you are not able.
Yes.
Can we talk about it?
I think you just did. Yeah, I mean, so to paraphrase those who didn't hear it, and you said, can we talk about compassion? Kuan Yin is this large statue in the middle behind me, holds the vase, pouring out compassion. And what you said, Normal, was the idea of compassion is to try to alleviate others' suffering. Sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. And then you said, can we talk about that? And I said, we just did, right? I mean, that's in essence, so I'll ramble on that for a minute or so. That is the practice. We pour out compassion. But as you know, it doesn't always work. And this is where, from a Buddhist lens, you have two wings, wisdom and compassion. And the practice really is to have both, because ultimate wisdom gives greater chance of compassion, to use your words, working. Very often, and I'll kind of jump to the other side here, I'm not using you as an example, but very often when we do things to have compassion or show compassion or share compassion, who are we often doing it for? Ourselves. You don't think I know most people come and feed people on a Thursday at 5 o'clock because it helps them feel good. You know, you listen to literally 50, 60 people talk about, and all of you were there Sunday night, talk about what they love the most about being of service and giving compassion to others is how it makes them feel. Nobody sat there judging them for feeling good, for helping people, but that's where it starts. Very often, the compassion starts with, we're doing it because we want to feel better. That doesn't make it bad or wrong. But when you bring wisdom into the picture, ultimately you recognize the I, the ego, the self that's feeling all that starts to diminish a little bit. The compassion continues, but then we're able to actually see, at least in theory, I have no idea what this is like, but then we're able to actually see that with wisdom, we're actually addressing it more directly, whatever that compassionate act is. When we lack wisdom with compassion, we're looking at it from kind of this ego self place. I want it to be this way, you know? I want this type of bread. I want this type of bag. I want this type of peanut butter. We're thinking about what we want. Compassion says, feed people. Wisdom says, feed people. Right? So bringing wisdom into compassion is the way to cut through the sense of self and the ego as we practice compassion. And again, if, to your question, if the idea is around pouring out compassion where it actually works, the greater level of wisdom we have, the greater opportunity we have to make it work. But even then, as we know, we've all been there, I'm sure, at times in our lives where anyone ever tried to really help you, and you were like, no, I'm good. And you really needed help, and you're like drowning, and you're like, no, I'm good, right? And they're trying to pour out compassion, and that vase is literally like beating you over the head with compassion. You're like, no, I'm good, you know? You've heard me say this, but I remember one of my first arguments with one of my very first favorite and least favorite Zen teachers, and she was a Taiwanese Buddhist nun, and we were in this argument, and she accused me of being all compassion and no wisdom, and I accused her of being all wisdom and no compassion. That was a fun discussion. She was ultimately right, because she had the wisdom. She also had the compassion. But the wisdom tied to the compassion, I wasn't seeing. I wanted her to house and shelter somebody at the temple that had no business being housed and sheltered at the temple. To get into a little more detail to make it make sense a little bit. And I said, how can you turn your back on this person? This person needs a place. They need help. They need shelter. They need care. They need everything. Nobody in that environment knew how to take care of this person. And what this person needed could not be received at the temple. I didn't see any of that. I just thought, how could, I'm I was a year into learning about compassion, and I was like, no, you must save all sentient beings from suffering. Here's someone who's suffering. We must save him from suffering. We would have killed him. But our compassion said, let's take care of him. We had zero wisdom. We, meaning like the four of us, and I was just the spokesperson for the four. So the compassion piece must come with wisdom, and then I think the chances for success is greater. But ultimately, the last piece I'll say is, even then, if people aren't ready to receive compassion, they're not ready, and that's okay. We've all heard of, many of you have heard me talk about what's called the Bodhisattva practice of no gift, no giver, no receiver. So you're not attached. You're pouring out compassion, and if it's received, it's received. If it's not, it's not. But you're not attached to it. You pour out compassion regardless. If they don't receive it, you continue to pour out compassion. Unless it's, obviously a situation where they're like, I'm good, leave me alone. Right? So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to close on that. So we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, just a couple quick announcements before y'all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices led by different people. Every Thursday, as I mentioned, we do the food redistribution program. I still think it's probably the best thing around here, even though I know we all do it for selfish reasons. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on a sidewalk. So if you ever think your life sucks and you kind of lack gratitude, prepare food for people who sleep on a sidewalk, and it tends to put things into perspective. And if it doesn't work, you keep doing it until it has an impact on you. Only thing out of the ordinary is New Year's. We'll have our 19th annual New Year's Eve celebration. 7 o'clock, we do a vegetarian potluck. 9 o'clock, I'll do a history and vision of the Dharma Bum Temple. And then at 11:30, we gather in here and we do a silent meditation into midnight. The whole night's not silent, just the last kind of 30 minutes. As I often say, if you've never done a silent and sober New Year's, this is your opportunity to do both. Some people come at 7 and they're smart and home and in bed by 9 o'clock. Some people come at 9 o'clock just for the story, and some people just show up at 11:30 for the meditation. So you're welcome at any time to drop in or out throughout the evening. Other than that, our schedule holiday time doesn't change. Whatever holiday's going on, we're kind of we keep doing what we do. Consistent, thank you, is what I was looking for. We keep consistent because this is a time that for many it's a wonderful, happy, joyous time. And for many it's an incredibly painful, sad, difficult time. So either way, we're here. So thanks all for being here. And, yeah, question?
Oh, no, we're going to your part tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, but it's pretty much already done, and they didn't sign up, they can't go anyway, so you'd just be making them feel shitty for not signing up.
I'm just going to remind we're meeting out front for carpool 7.
Oh, go ahead, sorry, yeah. For anyone going to Deer Park, go ahead.
Okay, for anyone going to Deer Park tomorrow, you should have registered already, and we're meeting, if you want a carpool from here, we're meeting at 7:30 tomorrow. So happy and mindfulness.
And you did have to RSVP, so if you didn't RSVP, you can't go. That's all through Deer Park, and that opened on December 8th. So thank you all. Buddha Food is downstairs if you need anything. Maggie's there. Wish you